It takes a long time to build a city, but this rule does not always work. There's a city in the world where dozens of houses were built a day, a city that became a millionaire in just a few decades, and even an experimental city that was built in just 3 years. Let's take a look at them. This is Infinity, and in this episode I'll show you the fastest growing cities in the world. Let's go. Shenzhen. Looking at the photos of modern Shenzhen, it's hard to believe that this city is very young. Some 40-odd years ago, it was a small fishing village with poor development and a population of a few thousand people. Now it's a giant city with a population of over 17.5 million people, huge skyscrapers, and big finance. Shenzhen has been one of the key cities in southern China for many years. Thanks to massive foreign and government investment, a tiny village has rapidly become a developed metropolis. In the 1980s, during the first construction boom, Shenzhen literally grew by leaps and bounds, with dozens of new houses appearing every day and growing taller and taller over time. The Gamao building, Shenzhen's crowning glory at the time, is an exceptional case. One floor was built in a matter of 3 days. In the shortest time, the tower became the tallest building in China, although the record was later broken. Thanks to the incredible pace of the Gamao building's construction, the expression Shenzhen speed was coined, and the city itself was recognized as the fastest growing in the world. The situation has not changed much. Shenzhen is still actively developing and growing. Andriesgrad. Building a city in a few decades is cool, but what about a city built in just a few years? Andriesgrad is just such a case. It's located in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in a city within a city. Andriesgrad is located in Visegrad. The pace of growth is astonishing, as the city was built from the ground up in only 3 years. Even some buildings take much longer time to construct. Until June 2011, it was a wasteland, and in June 2014, it was replaced by old Balkan-style buildings. From the outside, the city looks like a fortress, as Visegrad might have looked if it had been surrounded by a fortress wall in the Middle Ages. It's interesting that Emir Kusturica, the famous film director, made a huge contribution to the construction. It was he who financed and directed the construction. Thanks to Kusturica and the workers, for 3 years, stores, hotels, theater, museum, institute, temple, market, cafes, restaurants, pier, and much more appeared literally from nothing on the wasteland. Every year, hundreds of tourists come here, wishing to experience the incredible beauty. Novosibirsk. If Andriesgrad can be included among the cities that were the fastest, then Russian Novosibirsk can safely be called the fastest-growing, multi-million-strong city in history. At one time, Novosibirsk even made it into the Guinness Book of World Records as the fastest-growing city in the world. Its population reached 1 million people in less than 70 years. By comparison, it took a giant like New York all of 250 years. Tokyo took 400 years to get 1 million inhabitants. Moscow took 700 years. And Kyiv took 900 years. One of the closest competitors of Novosibirsk is Chicago. This American metropolis has become a multi-million-strong city in 85 years, because of which the two cities are often compared with each other. Despite the incredible achievement in the past, now Novosibirsk cannot be called a fast-growing city. The pace of this Siberian city has slowed down, but other cities from different parts of the world boast an insane rate of growth and development, and they're growing by leaps and bounds. Stay tuned to see even more fast-growing and fast-developing cities on the planet that'll impress you. Chongqing. Shenzhen is not the only pride of China. In terms of cities, it's hard to argue with the Celestial Empire because local cities are developing very rapidly. Perhaps Chongqing does it best. Maybe you've never heard of this city. If so, it's one of the 4 municipalities in China and one of the fastest-growing cities on the planet. Its population is staggering. Chongqing is home to more than 32 million people. That's almost 3 times more than in Moscow. However, the area of Chongqing is also enormous. It's 32 times larger than the capital of Russia. Chongqing's rapid growth is due to its growing economy, which adds 15% each year. The Chongqing model, which differs from traditional Chinese politics, also played a major role in the city's economic success. It's made great strides in public safety, helped rebuild the infrastructure, attracted foreign direct investment, and spurred urbanization. Lagos. Not only China is doing well, but also Nigeria. We often associate Africa with poverty, aridity, and other bad things, but not all places on the mainland are bad. Lagos is a perfect example. This Nigerian city is literally growing by leaps and bounds. Now its population exceeds 23 million, and by 2050 it could exceed 32 million. And some experts believe that by the end of the 21st century, Lagos in general will be the most developed and most populous city in the world, in which about 90 million people will live. It's amazing because only some 30 years ago, only a few million people lived there. Lagos's insane growth is aided by its location. The city is home to most of Nigeria's industries, and the city itself is one of the most important ports, not only in the country but in the entire mainland. About 6 million tons of cargo goes through Lagos a year. No wonder the city's grown so much. It's now considered the largest city in the country and in all of Africa, and in a few decades it could take the global palm of victory. Nairobi. East Africa also boasts cool cities, and the main one is Nairobi, the capital of Kenya. It's the largest city in East Africa with a huge number of inhabitants, skyscrapers, and other things. However, a little over 100 years ago, it was just swampy. Actually, even a few decades ago, Nairobi was very different from what it's become. The city resembled something between a typical African savanna and the future metropolis. Now the thorny bushes and sand have been replaced by greenery, and small buildings have been replaced by skyscrapers and first-class structures. Many international companies and organizations, including some UN bodies, are based in the city. The population of Nairobi is about 4.4 million and growing. Unfortunately, most of the inhabitants do not live in luxury homes but in slums. Although Nairobi is developing rapidly, within the city limits are the Kibera slums, the largest and creepiest in the world. Between 100,000 and 2 million people live there. The exact number is unknown. Surprisingly, the slums are only 5 kilometers from the city center. Although Nairobi is growing rapidly, the city is still far from being the most prosperous, and the Kenyan capital is consistently in the top of various lists in terms of crime. Kinshasa. East Africa, check. West Africa, check. Only Central Africa remains. Kinshasa, the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo, is not only the key city in the country itself, but also of Central Africa, and at the same time one of the fastest-growing megalopolises on the planet. More than 17 million people live here, and that's far from the limit. By 2050, the number of inhabitants is expected to triple. In recent years, the population growth rate has been good, about 4% per year. As in the case of Nairobi, Kinshasa is a typical city of many faces. Wealthy neighborhoods and shopping areas coexist with very poor slums, where people have to survive on a daily basis. All the more surprising is the fact that not only humans but also robots work on Kinshasa's central roads, just as in mega-developed Japan. Robots are equipped with video cameras, displays with information for pedestrians, and hand traffic lights. They're solar-powered and can even write out fines. Robots can be found not only on Central African roads but also in Dubai. In fact, I could have started this episode with this city because this pride of the United Arab Emirates is astonishing in its growth rate. Dubai and Shenzhen are very similar. Like the Chinese metropolis, Dubai used to be a small village. It was very poor, but all that changed when oil was found nearby in the desert. In a few decades, Dubai has transformed from a rundown village into a giant metropolis which everyone dreams of visiting. This amazing city has several records. Here is the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building on the planet, the largest artificial archipelago of the Palm Islands, as well as the Dubai Mall, which is the largest shopping center of the planet. The most expensive cars in the world drive through the streets of Dubai, and the city itself is literally saturated with money. Dubai is clearly not going to stop. It's still among the fastest growing and fastest developing megalopolises on Earth. It's hard to believe that a few decades ago, no one would have dreamed of this. You probably all know about Silicon Valley in the United States, but did you know that there's something similar not only in the United States but also in India? The city of Bangalore in the south of the country is called India's Silicon Valley. That's because there are so many information technology companies here. Many people want to study and work in Bangalore, which is why the city is growing and developing very fast. At the moment, it's one of the fastest growing cities in Asia, as well as the country's largest scientific and industrial center. Bangalore produces mechanical engineering, aerospace, telecommunications equipment, and defense equipment, as well as many electronic devices. There's a huge demand for real estate in Bangalore, and many inventors from Asia and beyond come here to launch their startups here. More to come. Experts are sure that the situation will only improve in the coming decades and that Bangalore itself will grow many times over. Singapore. Asian cities never cease to amaze, and Singapore is another such example. Despite the fact that Singapore is still considered a fast-growing and developing city, it's already achieved success and even set a record. A few years ago, it was recognized as the most expensive megalopolis in the world. And I'm not talking about the total cost of the city. I mean it's very expensive to live here. For example, 1 kilo loaf of bread costs $3.50 here. A bottle of regular wine costs almost $24. But it is possible to explain it. Singapore is rightly considered a city of the future. The megalopolis center strikes with its buildings. Locals and tourists have been actively using QR codes for many years. Well, this is still a novelty in many regions of the world. And the city streets are distinguished by incredible cleanliness. The level of comfort here is beyond compare. Songdo. This city was founded in 2002 after the authorities conceived the idea of building a smart city of the future from scratch. To some extent, South Korean Songdo is one of the fastest growing cities in the world. Just 20 years ago, there was practically nothing here, and now Songdo is packed with all the gimmicks of a modern metropolis. Moreover, it differs significantly from ordinary megalopolises. Songdo was supposed to be the ideal city of the future, but the plan partially failed. Now, just over 150,000 people live in Songdo, far less than what was planned. The reason's simple. Although Songdo was built from the ground up and the city itself managed to grow quickly, not everything works here. The city's infrastructure leaves a lot to be desired, and many of the construction projects that were started were never finished. At this rate, Songdo may become a ghost town in the near future. That's all, guys. What city would you like to live in? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.